Welcome to the Gus Alva Perspective, a videocast that's framed at the whole point of gratitude and abundance and overriding the other factors of fear and scarcity, which unfortunately we're all too oftentimes regaled with right now through multiple outlets. The topic that I'd like to touch on today is actually a very serious theme. In my world, in the psychiatric setting, we oftentimes end up having to deal with anxiety states. And there's a couple of ways of trying to tackle the problem of anxiety. One of those is basically flooding the individual with that which they fear most. So imagine you've got a fear of snakes, and all of a sudden you pull out a rubber snake and you toss it at somebody. That's something that would be highly impactful and highly frightening for somebody that would have a specific phobia like that. But the whole concept of flooding is basically immersing somebody into that situation where they fear the potential outcome of that encounter the most. Another way of potentially applying that would be through gradual desensitization, where you're essentially laying out little tidbits of whatever it is that's frightful for that individual so that over time they become desensitized to whatever it is that they fear most. Now, that sense of desensitization, however, can work in reverse. And that's exactly what I'd like to touch on today, because one of the things that's most frightful to me as a professional within the mental health space, but also as a human being, is the fact that at the present time, we are being flooded with so many examples where we are desensitized to things that previously may have been shocking to us, but now become mundane, everyday occurrences that we all of a sudden turn a blind eye to something that may have previously been highly impactful for us. Let me give you an example of this. When we had the 9/11 tragedy occur in the U.S., everybody was riveted to the TVs and like thinking, who could potentially do something like this? Well, it turned out there's evil individuals that abound in the world, and certainly ISIS was one of those organizations that was trying to shock the world into having their voice be heard about what they felt would be something important to them. In other words, a caliphate or a following of the tenets or the principles of Islam, and essentially creating this jihad or this battle against other people considered non-believers. The reason I'm going on this particular slant is that there was an American journalist that was captured by these folks, and he was decapitated, and this entire incident was filmed. I remember as it occurred, one of my colleagues actually said, hey, you've got to take a look at this video. I had no idea of what the video's content was about. And I was, in a ghastly manner, fixated on the screen of what I was watching, but terrified at the same time. It was something that I didn't want to view, but I couldn't peel my eyes away from what I was watching, thinking there's no way that this could actually be happening or unfolding in the time in which I'm actually watching this. And it was a horrifying instance of abject terror in the individual that is being beheaded. For the viewer, this is something that slaps you in the face and makes you feel sick. It makes you feel angry over the fact that another human being could do this to someone else. Now, why am I saying this? Well, that particular instance of that beheading was to me something that was shocking, and it was revolting, and it was something that I absolutely had no desire to ever view again. And in fact, I felt upset with my colleague that had suggested that I watch this. But the problem with this is that Hollywood has now created a situation whereby our children, our families, are essentially watching content similar to this on a regular basis and becoming calloused or desensitized to violence, to unusual norms, to things that in the past would have been incredible for us to actually absorb, have it sink in, and think that anybody would feel like there's a sense of normalcy associated with whatever particular topic it is that we're being inundated with. And at the present time, there are multiple fronts where people are flooded with content that is desensitizing in nature. Obviously, the topics are too broad to touch on at the present time right now, but it's very important that we keep our mind's eye open to the dangers that beset us from multiple angles, multiple ends, and particularly for young minds that might think that it's okay to hurt another individual. It's okay to challenge the norms that are so deeply embedded within biology, but are now looked at as potentially questionable. And the amazing thing is that even despite the fact that medical evidence will reveal specific areas in which there's no question of a given topic, now we're in a scenario societally where people actually question that, and that drives this dissonant note of lunacy that almost is to be embraced as truth, logic, or dogma. So the reason I wanted to touch on this topic of desensitization is that it's one that's highly prevalent around us. It's one that oftentimes lands into homes through subterfuge, through stealth, in an insidious manner where it's crept in. And over time, it creates this almost calloused perspective in people. And it's very important that we oftentimes question the sanity of some of the things that are going on around us. Our mindset should actually be one of embracing abundance, gratitude, and kindness to one another. And so at this point, I just wanted to share some particular thoughts as it comes down to how certain things can be utilized for good, but sometimes how they can also be utilized in a negative manner. I thank you for joining us in the Gus Alva Perspective, a videocast that's earmarked at embracing gratitude and abundance.